Okay, so tomorrow's the day where millions of Americans might be committing a felony without knowing it, and that is something that we need to make everyone aware of. June 1st is the start of the pistol brace ruling taking effect, but we did get some injunctions. So here's something that I want you to keep in mind, okay? As of right now, at least according to my knowledge, there are some groups that if you're associated with them, you would be protected by this injunction. And those groups include Gun Owners of America, or GOA, we have Firearms Policy Coalition, FPC, we also have the Second Amendment Foundation, or SAF, and we also have the employees of the state of Texas and a couple of other plaintiffs that are protected now by these injunctions. However, there's a lot of gray area there. So these are wins, and I do applaud those firearms rights groups trying their best to do what they can to protect people like ourselves here in this community from suddenly becoming criminals without even any intent. However, this isn't the big win we were hoping for. There was no nationwide injunction that protected everybody out there who had a pistol brace. And of course, if you aren't one of the members of these groups or a state employee of Texas or some of these other plaintiffs out there, then you aren't necessarily protected. And the other thing I want to mention before everyone goes out and just immediately joins all these groups, which I'm not saying you shouldn't, because either way, supporting them is going to help protect Second Amendment rights here in the future. But what I would say is that there's still a lot of gray area in these injunctions, and no one specifically has been able to come out and say for sure that you would be protected based on your membership status of before the injunction or after the injunction or right at the injunction. And there's actually a lawyer on YouTube named Tom Grieve who does a lot of Second Amendment stuff, and I'll link his video, I think over here, maybe up here, I don't know, but it'll be linked there as well as in the description and the pinned comment in case you want to go check out what he had to say coming from the perspective of an attorney, because there are some things to consider when it comes to these injunctions that you might not be aware of if you don't have that kind of legal mind, right? So these are small wins, but we didn't get the major win we were hoping for. And unfortunately, a lot of people are going to suddenly be technically committing a crime come tomorrow without any awareness of it, because still, I guarantee you, millions and millions of firearms owners in this country that have pistol braces have no idea any of this is even happening, which is a big deal, which is why we have to keep talking about it. It's not because you're not aware of it, and it's not because others in this community aren't aware of it. It's because there's a lot of people who might be committing a crime without any knowledge, right? So, you need to mention, biggest supporter of the channel is Midway USA, and of course they're a big Pro 2A company as well, and I do appreciate working with them because the more companies we have that support the Second Amendment and give us access to things like what you see right here, the better off we are as Americans. That's just my opinion. Now here's the thing. Even though we didn't get the big win that we were hoping for, we did get some small wins, which sets some good precedent moving forward. The other thing I want to mention is that injunctions are generally temporary. So even if you do go out and join these groups and sign up for memberships, which I'm not saying you shouldn't regardless, because supporting them is going to help kind of keep this fight going into the future. Either way, injunctions are temporary, so it doesn't necessarily guarantee that from now until forever you'll be protected, right? So there's still a chance that it might be struck down in the sense of a protection measure. Now, the other thing I want to mention is that regardless of what you do regarding this whole situation, right? We have the different forms of compliance. We also have the concept of non-compliance. We have all of those things out there in the ether. Just make sure you make the best decision for you and do what you think is what needs to be done, because everyone in the comments is going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do and everything related to that. It's probably not a lawyer and probably doesn't have your best interests at heart. They just want to tell you what they feel, which is fine. However, you got to make the best decision for yourself, and I wouldn't necessarily fall into groupthink just because that's what you're expected to do. So just keep that in mind. Look, regardless of anything, and I've said that a lot now in this video, so I apologize, but one thing I do want to say is that no matter what, mass non-compliance, mass registration, mass anything, the thing that really was brought to light throughout this process is the fact that there are up to 40 million potential firearms owners out there that have pistol-braced firearms that would be now, as of tomorrow, considered short-barreled rifles, right? Well, in my opinion, that still gives us hope in the future for that precedent of common use to be part of the equation with any new cases that come forward, right? Because they're just admitting that there's millions of these out there in the hands of Americans. I mean, at what point does that constitute common use, if you ask me? The other thing to keep in mind is that even if you're protected by these injunctions, please go watch that video by Tom Grieve. because there's a chance that you might not be protected, just depending on the scenario and depending on whatever court you end up in trying to protect yourself over it. And also don't forget about the fact that even if you're protected by an injunction, that doesn't necessarily mean anything to an arresting officer at the time of any altercation that might occur, and you might still win in some kind of a court battle situation. However, you're still gonna maybe go through that whole scenario because of the lack of communication or the lack of understanding on the part of those who are putting you into that position. So just know everything and know all your options and know all the details you possibly can before moving forward with any decision, regardless of what it is. Whether or not you're gonna go join the GOA or the FPC or the SAF just to make sure that you're part of that injunction and you're part of that community, that's fine, but make sure you do your research and your due diligence to find out if for sure that'll protect you or if you still might risk some gray area situations. And that's just where we're at. And look, this isn't what I wanted to be talking about, and this isn't necessarily what I was hoping for. I mean, when I originally posted about the pistol brace ban and told everyone not to panic about it, I'm not gonna lie, I was relatively hopeful that we would see something bigger than what we've currently witnessed with these membership-related injunctions. However, it's not what we got, and in all honesty, I know this might sound kind of ridiculous to some people, but when I saw what happened to CRS Firearms, Matt Hoover, I lost a lot of faith in our ability to actually see this get stopped from moving forward, because it just doesn't seem like there's many people on our side when it comes to the actual court system. Maybe there's tons of people on our side when it comes to our community and these firearms rights groups that are out there doing the hard work, but when things go to court, I just don't know how much faith I have in that system anymore, you know? And I'm sure I share that sentiment with a lot of you. So look, it is what it is. Just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention, try to give you some concepts as to where we're at in this whole situation. And like I said, come tomorrow, at the bare minimum, if you know people that have pistol braces and you know people that might not be as involved with the community as you are, just let them know what's happening. Maybe you don't need to advise them on what to do. Maybe you can tell them what their options are, but at least make sure they're aware of what's happening, because I guarantee you the majority of pistol brace owners out there have no idea. So just want to bring that up. Like I said, I'll have links to that video down below in the description as well as the pinned comment, because I think it's important to kind of hear that perspective from an attorney. And besides that, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.